On today's show, we will be discussing intermittent fasting, so grab yourself a carb-free brew and let's get started. When you are on keto, the overall trend is for your body to utilize fats instead of sugar, and this will have a beneficial effect on your hormones. Glucose or blood sugar concentrations need to be regulated, and this is the key role of insulin. When you are eating carbs, there will be an insulin response in your body as it needs to move the excess glucose from your blood and store it either in your muscles as glycogen or in your fat cells. So, one of the goals of keto is to minimize the release of insulin as we do not want to be storing fat, but rather releasing it for our body to break down into ketone bodies that can be used for our energy needs. Insulin production is triggered from the foods we eat. Carbs will cause the largest insulin spike, while fats will produce a much smaller spike. It is worth noting that all carbs are not treated equal. More complex carbohydrates can take longer to break down, and instead of a high insulin spike, you may see a slightly lower one with a longer duration at its peak. Keeping all of that in mind, it makes sense to try and limit how often we eat so that we can really take advantage of lower insulin levels for fat loss. One more thing we need to mention before we pull this all together is the effect of high fat diet on ghrelin. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone, and higher levels in your bloodstream will stimulate hunger. A high fat diet will reduce ghrelin levels as well as enhance the effects of leptin, the satiety hormone. Okay, when we pull this all together, keto, as we become fat adapted, will reduce hunger, and limiting the times we eat will maximize the fat release from our fat cells. So, the first obvious thing we get from this is that things like snacking can really hurt our insulin levels and hinder fat release. We want to really limit the number of times we eat. You will find it super easy on keto to evolve your diet into a two-meal system. The time between meal one and meal two is what we would call your eating window. The time after meal two until you have the next day's meal one is our fasting window. If you have meal one at 9 a.m. and meal two at 5 p.m., you would then have an 8-hour eating window and a 16-hour fasting window. And this is cool, but with reduced ghrelin levels, it is very easy to shrink that window more and create an intermittent fasting regiment. The 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. window would be a 16-8 intermittent fasting plan, but it is very easy to change that to a 18-6 window by having your first meal at 12 p.m. and then your second meal at 6 p.m., which is a very popular plan. Both of these are definitely ideal for beginners. There are more advanced methods of intermittent fasting, such as a stop, eat, stop plan, where you do full 24-hour fasts once a week. There is another version where you simply restrict your calories down to 5 to 600 over a 2-day period each week. Both of these are definitely interesting, but on keto, just restricting the eating window is the easiest form of fasting. We can look at longer term fastings in a future video, as keto can make fasts easier. However, they are not for beginners. So, what is the upside of intermittent fasting? Obviously, we already talked about lower insulin and lower ghrelin levels, which is great for your fat loss. In addition to this, the longer fasting window will also initiate a greater degree of cell repair that can include autophagy, where your body will break down and recycle old and often dysfunctional cells. You will also increase your levels of human growth hormone, which is great for fat loss and muscle gain. Keep in mind, more muscles means your basal metabolic rate increases, which means you are burning more calories when you are sitting on your butt or exercising. All of that translates into fat loss. Lowered insulin resistance, reductions in inflammation, some cancer prevention, promotion of brain health, and there have been some anti-aging benefits as well. All of these we will be exploring, of course, on this channel. Before we get to this week's weigh-in, I should add that you always want to consult with your doctor before you make major dietary changes. You definitely want to talk to them before you undertake any form of intermittent fasting, especially if you have diabetes or sugar regulation issues, low blood sugar, underweight, or eating disorder, or if you are trying to conceive or are pregnant. Remember, a random person on YouTube does not come with a medical degree, so always talk to your doctor. Okay, So let's get to my journey's numbers. So last week I came in at 340 pounds on the scale. I weighed myself this morning and the verdict was 322 pounds for a total weight loss of 18 pounds in the first week. A good number, but I need to point out that a good deal of that weight is water. I can guarantee that next week the numbers will be lower as I have less glycogen, and that means less water. For those following along, don't compare your numbers to mine and get discouraged if I am hitting bigger numbers. These numbers are absolutely relative. If I had started at 240, then this week's weigh-in would have been 12.7 pounds using body weight percentages. Also, this journey is not about weight loss. It is about fat loss, and you will have weeks where the scale says you have lost nothing, but it lies, as you just toned your muscles enough to cancel out the fat loss in terms of weight. So you are smaller, but not lighter. That is actually awesome. The tail of the tape is a more reliable measure. Now let's get to some financial fun. So part of my challenge is to take the money I am saving by using keto and use it to buy a stock each week. I am using Wealthsimple for this as it is an easy to use, commission-free online stockbroker. And they have no minimums, so if you want to add small amounts of money, you can. For my American viewers, you can do that too with Robinhood and I think also Webull. I do have an affiliate link below for any Canadians that want to play along. I worked out that I normally spend an average of $105 per week on my standard North American diet. Now on keto, my average week will be around $75, which leaves us $30 to invest each week. However, for this first week, as I added some keto staples, for example, pink salt, to my cupboards, we spent a little more. So for week one, we were left with about $12 to invest. Luckily, the ETF I chose for this challenge is XEG, which is the BlackRock Canada iShares S&P TSX Capped Energy Index ETF. What that means is that this fund invests in a lot of big energy stocks in North America. Last year, they grew a lot, so it will be fun to see what we can do with it this year. So yesterday, before the market closed for the weekend, I took my $12 and I bought one share of this ETF for a cost of $11.47. Next week, we will add more. And as we go through this challenge, we will see how much it grows as we shrink. It will be a lot of fun. If you like the financial part of this challenge and want to learn more about finances, I will leave a link below for my other channel, Financial Brew. If you liked today's video, be sure to show the like button some love. If you want to follow along on this journey, then be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell if you want to be notified whenever I drop a new video. Until next time, keep losing and we'll see you again soon. Take care.